So this last module covers where do I collect, okay? So you're all for this, you understand how to get the signatures, you're all ready to go, and you realize it's a big world out there. Number one, you cannot collect on any federal property. So if you go, there's several courthouses in some of the major cities like Indianapolis. You've got your state courthouses, sometimes your county courthouses, and then you also have federal courthouses. You cannot collect anywhere near federal property, okay? So if you want to go to the post office, guess what? That's federal property. So what can you do? Well, you have to be on the sidewalk that's outside all of the post office property. So post offices may sound great, but that might not be the best place where you're going to be able to get signatures at. You can, however, collect on state and local property. So this is like parks, outside libraries, state and public universities, not private ones, but state ones, and on sidewalks that are downtown. Those places all qualify. You can only collect on private property, however, if you get permission from the owner first, okay? And if at any time that owner revokes the permission and says, sorry, I don't want you here, you have to leave. You have no right to be on private property without the owner's permission. Private property also includes nonprofit organizations. So like say you want to collect signatures outside Walmart, you would have to go contact their manager and say, hey, is it okay if I set a table up outside your door, not interfere with any of your guests, and collect signatures? Or if there's a private college you attend, or your kid attends, and they're okay, you contact the college and say, hey, I want to set this up, can I do that? Some colleges are going to say no, and I'll get into that in a little bit. When you're going on and collecting, it's always a good idea to carry a copy of the legal rights that you have so that if you're challenged on state or local government property, you can pull these out and use it. In the reference that I've attached to this, there is an actual section that explains, basically these are the court cases that say that I have the right to be here. However, that said, if you're challenged while you're on state or local government property and the police are still asking you to leave as opposed to move, they may say, hey, can you move over here? Don't argue with them, just move if they tell you to move. But if they're like, you got to get out of here, then that's when there may be a problem, and you've shown them your rights and they're still telling you have to leave, they don't care, okay? Don't start a fight with the police. Don't get yourselves arrested and thrown in jail. That's not going to prove anything. Just leave as requested. Don't get in a fight. If you can video it, hey, that's great. If you can video the whole confrontation, that would be good. But then afterward, call the Kennedy call center and tell them, hey, can I speak with a staff member? I was out gathering signatures and I just had this confrontation with the police and they tried to kick me off property that, was public property and I thought I had a right to be there, okay? And talk with the staff member, tell them, and then we can keep sort of a track record of what's going on with this stuff, okay, if it happens. So your first thought might be, what about my church, okay? So churches are obviously private, nonprofit, and a church cannot legally be involved in political campaigns, okay? If you go to the church and use the church printer to print out your petitions and make copies of your petitions, technically the church is violating its nonprofit status and that can get revoked, okay? I recommend, if you want your friends from church to sign the petition, invite them out to dinner afterward and get the signatures there, okay? That's where it needs to be done. You don't want to get your church in trouble. And it is for this reason, and the next one that I tell you, some private, nonprofit, schools and stuff like that may not allow you to collect there because they don't want to run into these rules, okay? The next rule is that if let's say your church is completely pro-Kennedy and is like, hey, why don't you come, I hear you're volunteering to get signatures, why don't you just sit outside and collect signatures there? They may not be aware, but you need to, that if your church allows you to petition outside the church, on the church property, or even inside the church, anywhere on church property, what is going to happen is that church is then opened itself up to being required to allow petitions from anyone and everyone. Okay? So this may be petitions that your church does not support, your church values don't support, and they may be sitting right outside your church door getting that, and if your church doesn't allow it but allowed you to do it, then the church could lose its nonprofit status. And its church nonprofit status, which is just not a good thing to lose. Because that gives you a lot of extra protections that other nonprofits don't have. Okay, what about schools? Okay, so schools, and we're not talking universities, because like I said, universities, it depends if they're private or public, and if you've got permission with the private university. So for a school, if there's a public event occurring, you can't go inside the school, but you can stand outside the school and collect signatures, okay? But there has to be a public event, like if there's a school play, or if there's some sort of school sporting event, or something like that, where the public is allowed to come in, that is when you can go to the school, stand outside, and collect signatures, okay? In no circumstances, wherever you are you allowed to set up in such a way that people cannot access the business or school or library or whatever. They can't get in because you're blocking entrance or, trying to get them in their way. You can't stand in front of them and say, hey, no. You can stand on the side and you have to let them freely go in and out. So what are the best places? In my opinion, events. So we've got parades. We've got St. Patrick's Day Parade. We've got Memorial Day Parade. We've got the eclipse that's coming straight through Indiana, and most of these small towns are planning something big during that eclipse, okay? And that's going to bring a lot of people in. You just have to make sure they're living in Indiana, they are registered to vote in Indiana, they're over 18, and they can sign. And don't stare at the sun during this eclipse. There's town Easter egg hunts. There's outside sporting events. There's inside sporting events. I mean, this is Indiana. We have tons of sporting events. If you're going to plan to go to an event, though, you might want to plan to try to arrive 2 hours before the event, especially something like a parade where people are going to be gathering early. You want to have time to set up. If you're going to be setting up, if you've got permission to set up a table somewhere, then you want to be ready when the people first come in so that you can go. You need to carry your sheets with you or wear buttons or other Kennedy items. So you keep your clipboards with your sheets in the car, and everywhere you go, you got your Kennedy button on. People are going to come up and ask you, hey, are you Kennedy supporter? And you're like, yeah, and I'm trying to get on the ballot, are you interested in, voting for Kennedy? Once again, don't pressure anybody. Just see if they want, and if they do, hey, I got the ballot signature or the ballot access petition in my car. Would you mind signing it right now? And you can be ready, all right? The way Kennedy has set it up is you don't have to even buy stuff that says Kennedy on it. You can make whatever you want yourself. And he encourages people to create their own things. And you can use anything on the website to do that, so that you can then wear it. If you're into making buttons, make your own buttons and wear them. When you're collecting, you want to try to have a partner with you. I've already said this. This is very important. It's not only safer, but it also makes the task less lonely. And I'm sure if you're from Indiana, you're already familiar with the fact you've got a lot of small towns and they don't like strangers that well. So just, be mindful of where you're going, be mindful of what you're doing. It's going to be a bigger opportunity if they have a town event that they're inviting the community and outside their community in. But you just need to be careful. And then you've been out collecting, you got 3 signatures, and you spent 4 weeks and you feel down in the dump. Every signature you get saves $10 to $12. Saves the campaign, so they don't have to hire somebody to go out and get them. Okay, so thank you for being interested in this, and thank you for supporting the campaign in this way.